Welcome back to Footballology. So, if you've been subscribed to the YouTube channel for quite some time now, you understand that I like talking about the other guys, the fifth round and later guys, the undrafted guys, the guys that I feel like have a bigger impact on some rosters and some teams than they get credit for. Now, I want to talk to you guys about the TSL, which is called the Spring League. I literally just found it this year, but it's been around for the last 4 or 5 years, and I've been paying attention to it as much as possible. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know a lot about some of the rosters. I know the teams, but I just don't know about their rosters themselves and some of the players, so I've been trying to do a lot of research on that. But for the most part, the two teams that I was a fan of was the Linemen and the Alphas. The Alphas particularly because I like the way they ran the ball. I like the way they controlled the line of scrimmage. And then the Linemen, they just eventually separated themselves from everybody else in the league. And so that's why you see them in this thing called the Mega Bowl, which is the equivalent of the Super Bowl, the TSL's equivalent to the Super Bowl. So we have the Jousters versus the Lions, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about. The Mega Bowl is going down this Saturday, and I think it's going to be exciting. I got the Linemen winning, and I think the Linemen just have shown that they can be a more dominant team. Now, they're not as balanced as the Jousters are, and I think the Jousters play a more controlled offense. But with the Linemen, I like the way that they throw the ball down the field for one. As much as I like, don't give the passing game enough credit. The way the linemen take risks down the field have allowed them, and I think in the last 2 or 3 games, be in the game because there was like the last 2 or 3 games, if I remember correctly, they were down, they were struggling, and they just throwing the ball allowed them to get right back in the game. Now they don't run the ball effectively, but damn it, they throw the shit out of that ball. Like they know what they're doing when it goes to the aerial attack. And like I said, the Jousters have a more balanced offense. So it's going to be really interesting because I think if you're the Jousters going into this game, I think the Jousters are going to try to play controlled offense. I think they're going to nickel and dime them down the field. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to make sure they control the line of scrimmage as much as possible on the offense and the defense side of the ball, just for the simple fact that they want to keep this lineman offense off the field. I'm not saying it's the Chiefs offense or anything like that, but it's definitely for this league, it's considered an elite offense. The way they're able to bite off chunks and scores. It's just crazy. So real quick, I just want to run down some of the rosters. I don't have the complete research or knowledge of every roster, but I really want to take a look at the Lineman roster and the Jousters roster real quick. So the one thing I want to talk to you guys about is just some of the players that have stood out to me on some of these rosters, on these Mega Bowl rosters, if you will. Now with the linemen, the first thing that stood out to me was the quarterback position, Ryan Willis. This was the guy that was able for this offense to be a high flying or quote unquote big shot taking offense. I think this offense, like I said, it's not extremely balanced as far as running the ball, but when it comes to throwing the ball, there's no other team in this league that can throw the ball as well as they can. Ben Putman is a guy that's consistently showed up for them. He is a guy that's like their slot receiver, if you will, and he's a guy that's just been there. And then another guy, and actually he's not on there. I think this roster's old. They got a guy named Zico. I want to say his last name is, and with him, he's like a deep threat guy, if you will. And then I think their biggest weapon on offense is Michael Darius. Now, this guy, I think eventually is going to get picked up by a team, and I would be surprised if he doesn't get picked up by a team. He has shown that he could be a number one receiver. Now, I'm not saying he could be a number one at the NFL level, but what I'm saying is that the way he's played with this roster and the way they consistently attack down the field with him, and then also now attacking down the field, I'm talking about wide receiver screens, I'm talking about slants or him running across the middle, whatever the case may be, or whatever they asked him to do from a wide receiver one position, he's done it, and he's done it at a high level. So I would not be surprised if an NFL team pick up Michael Darius. I just think that's a really good pickup if you're an NFL team. Now, Trey Mentor, their running back, it was crazy. So I was watching their last game to help them get into the Mega Bowl, and Mentor actually showed some signs of being a little bit more power, not a power back. I would say more closer to a balance back or one cut kind of guy. I think in a zone blocking scheme, so say for instance like a Niner scheme or something like that, I think that he could be even more dangerous. Now when it comes to the defense side of the ball, like I said, I don't know these rosters too well, especially on the defense side of the ball. A lot of the guys on defense for the linemen have not stood out to me personally. Not to say they're not good. It just hasn't been that guy that I'm like, oh, that man right there is a difference maker. Now, like I said, I don't think this roster is updated either because some of these names kind of look older because there was a lot of transactions throughout the season where they were releasing guys, picking up guys, and so forth and so on. But with the linemen, like I said, their offense is what's most intriguing about this team. Their offense has kept them in games and actually helped them come back and win some ball games. Ryan Willis at the helm is something to be watching out for. So if you're watching Saturday, watch out for Ryan Willis. That man has, I'm not going to say he has an elite arm, but he definitely has an NFL arm, if you will. I think that in the right scheme, in the right system, we seen Chad Pennington had great success, and he's probably had one of the weakest arms in NFL history. But I think Ryan, and I'm not saying Ryan Willis has a Chad Pennington arm, but what I'm saying is Ryan Willis is a guy that could possibly he could get get signed into a camp somewhere and just be a camp arm, but I think he's a guy that's really intriguing to me. Like I said, he has and he is the face of this lineman's offense and had them going in the right direction. So I personally got the lineman winning it all. That's me personally. I think the linemen are going to take the bowl, but that's whatever. We'll have to wait and see the Saturday. So now we're going to take a look at the Jousters roster. Now with the Jousters roster, the first guy that stood out to me was Shalom Luwani. I think I said his name right. Washington State safety. Now I did he was in one of my sleeper videos coming out in the NFL draft, and the reason why I liked him was because he was a box safety. He was a big banging type of safety, and it's crazy because in this league he still has that same mentality. He was a guy that could come downhill and be a force to be reckoned with. Now, I think ultimately what happened was he got into the NFL, and I think his lack of coverage ability kind of hurt him. And we've seen this with several guys in the past where you're a big banging safety and you're a really good box safety, but because your lack of coverage ability, it really hinders you from being an overall good safety. And that was one thing that I think around the time that Cam Chancellor was really coming onto the scene, everybody loved his intensity, the way he played, the way he was able to bang and just destroy people. But I think the one thing that kind of fell like to wayside, it was his ability to cover and his ability to be in that zone scheme and be just as effective as if he was in the run game. And so I think Shalom Nuwani, like I said, he was the first guy that stood out to me. Now watching their offense, the guy that I feel like they got two good offensive weapons, but I feel like their biggest offensive weapon is probably going to be Anthony Ratliff Williams. He's the wide receiver. He's a guy that's more like, if I could describe him, I don't want to say Odell, but he's more like a small possession route running type of receiver. Now he's a guy that he catch something short, he'll take it to the crib. He'll catch a deep ball, he'll take it to the crib. He was like a do-it-all receiver in my personal opinion, and that was the one guy that kind of really stood out for me on their offense as far as the wide receiver position. Now I like their tight end Hampton. Now Hampton was a former wide receiver at USC, and I did my research on him because I liked his stature and his size, but he's kind of quote-unquote undersized tight end, if you will. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", so he was the guy that stood out to me on their offense as well. And so defensively, like I said, Luwani was the one guy that stood out to me, and I feel like they had another guy that stood out to me, but he's not on this list for some reason, and that's just the Jousters. But when they were looking at the rating, and I'm going to put their Twitter account, the TSL's Twitter account in the description, so you guys can go take a look for yourself. But when they were rating all the teams over the course of the season, first of all, I think if I remember correctly, the linemen had the number one defense, and I think they had the number one quarterback as far as passing touchdowns and passing yards. And then the Jousters were like the number 3 ranked defense. And their quarterback play is definitely subpar, and that's the one thing that scares me about the Jousters. Drew Anderson and Luis Perez, I'm not feeling them. Not to say anything bad about them, but I'm just saying I'm not feeling them. The quarterback play for the Jousters is just not there. This is a team that's built by team, and that's purely it. I think this team has to win as a team, and that's how they're going to take care of business. But I think ultimately the linemen are going to take it personally. So that's really all I had for this video. I kind of want to put the TSL on the map, or at least for some of my people out there who actually subscribe to Footballology and actually enjoy it. I feel like the TSL is something that is going to stick around for quite some time. I do like the brand of football that they put out. Fox is definitely promoting them and doing everything in their power to make sure people get enough eyes on them. And then I seen the USFL is supposed to come back too, and then the XFL is supposed to come back in like 2022. So we're going to have a lot of football out there for the other players to kind of get out there and get themselves known. And I really like that idea. And I know for years and years and years, everyone's talked about some type of farm system for the NFL to either be able to groom players and give players options to get better and hone in on their craft, and then that way they have an opportunity to play at the next level or play at the NFL level. And the TSL is just one of those things. I think what the TSL has done thus far, and especially like the brand of football that they put out this year, and I mean they've probably been putting out this brand of football for this whole entire time, but for some reason This year just feels different, and maybe just because I'm involved now and I like actually paid attention to it. But this year it just feels like they actually put out a better brand of football, and I feel like their faces are getting known even more. They were at the HBCU combine, and they're doing their part to get these other players an opportunity, and that's something that they've said several times throughout all the broadcasts of these games is that the players themselves and the people in the booth, they were just saying there's just opportunities for players to get noticed, and sometimes you don't get to see everybody as an NFL scout or NFL GM. You don't get to see every single last person, and somebody might slid under the radar. And if he found his way on one of these TSL rosters, and he looked good, I think there was a guy. I want to say the Sea Lions, last name Galloway, running back. That dude looked like something special, and I would be surprised if he doesn't wind up on the NFL roster. And these guys are getting signed. Like these guys are legitimately getting signed to NFL rosters right now. And I know it's just training camp rosters, but that's an opportunity that you didn't have months ago. So take whatever you can get. All you need is a crack in the door, and if you're good enough, that crack will bust that door wide open. That's all you need, and I think that's what the TSL has done thus far, and I really like it. I like the brand of football. So definitely, if you get an opportunity, you ain't doing nothing on Saturday, make sure you tune in on Saturday and check out the game. It looks like I can barely see it on the screen for some reason, but it looks like it's like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, somewhere around there. But if you get an opportunity, definitely look it up and check out the game. It's definitely going to be on Fox, and I think it's going to be quality football. I feel like it's going to be a good game. And so if you get an opportunity, definitely go check it out. I'm going to put their Twitter handle in the description box below so you guys can go check them out and follow them on Twitter. And they have all the information. I follow them during Twitter, and they're really active during games too, which is really cool. So I don't know. I just think that this league is doing something big and doing something special. So I want to put people onto it before it blew up, I guess you would say, but something along those lines. But if you guys like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a footballologist yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. Go to hit that subscribe button today, become a footballologist, and stay safe, football fans.